everybody once again. Right, today we're going to ST 45.2a. Actually it's 45.2, there's no A in it. The second sutta in this volume. Despite a straightforward, easy sutta, but a very important sutta teaching us about the nature of giving according to the Buddha. The title of the sutta is Panchaka Dana Pala Siha Sutta. The five discourse on Siha, on the visible fruits of giving. The reference is A 5.34. So this is found in the Anguttara Book of Fives. This sutta also has an alternate title following the name of the key character in the sutta. Siha Sena Pati Sutta 1, the first discourse on general Siha. So it's a general. Now, notice the original title is simply Siha Sutta. Siha, of course, means lion, but here it's a name of a person. And Siha also is a very common name in Myanmar. Siha, Myanmar would pronounce it Tiha. So, if we call it a Siha Sutta, it can be quite confusing because a lot of Siha Suttas. So here we have to individualize it, disambiguate it by putting a double prefix. So we can just put either Panchaka or we can just put Dhanapala, but here I decided to put both just to be sure that we have one special name. And the title also is descriptive of the subject of the topic, Dana Pala, the fruit of giving. Dana Pala. Here Dana refers to general giving, especially supporting monastic figure, or a Dharma teacher, or a Dharma cause, or a monastery, and so on. Or even giving generally for the benefit of others. Now, General Siha has got a very colorful history. I think we have studied him separately. He was one of the top followers, chief sponsor of the Jain leader by the name of Mahavira, the founder of Jainism, actually. So his teacher sent him to challenge the Buddha, to knock the Buddha down, so to speak. But this general is quite wise. He tells his teacher, why do you do that? You should not do that because the Buddha is a magician, convert. He's a converter. He's very good in converting others. But the teacher insists. So General Siha goes, talks to the Buddha, and is convinced by the Buddha and becomes the Buddha's follower. So much so that he actually wants to cut himself totally from Mahavira, from the old teacher. And then the Buddha made a very famous saying. Buddha told him, you should not neglect your old teacher. If he comes to your home for alms, just offer him alms. There's nothing wrong with that. This kind of attitude, of course, today we call it professional courtesy. There's nothing wrong in giving someone food, especially when they need it. But faith is another matter. Following a teaching is a matter of faith. So this is the occasion when General Siha comes to the Buddha and asks the Buddha a question on the nature of giving. And this is still relevant to us today. It's not merely economic, it's also psychological and of course spiritual. This translation is on page 25. The five discourse on Siha, on the visible fruits of giving. At one time, the Blessed One was residing in the hall of the gable house in the great wood outside Vesali. So Vesali is one of these big cities, and the Buddha normally would stay outside the cities, he would stay in the woods and forests. Then the General Siha approached the Blessed One. Having saluted the Blessed One, he sat down at one side, and sitting down at one side, he said this to the Blessed One: Bhante, would you, the Blessed One, be able to point out the visible fruit or benefit here and now of giving? Right? So this is a famous question where the questioner asked the Buddha, can you tell me the result that you can see, possible result here and now in this life itself? And in another similar famous question is asked by King Ajatasattu to the Buddha, and that ended up with a long sutta, Digha Nikaya number 2, Samanyapala Sutta, where the king asks, what are the visible fruits of recluseship? If someone renounces the world, what are the benefits you can actually see? Of course, the Buddha gave a complete answer from beginning to end. What can be seen in the worldly sense and what can be seen in the spiritual sense also. So, today's sutta also has that similar tone where this questioner wants to know what are the immediate, what the visible benefits here and now of giving. Then the Buddha replies, section 2, says, yes, Siha, said the Blessed One. Now notice here, it's very, very rare where you see the Buddha addressing the person by name. Usually the Buddha will address the person by the family name. But here he is addressed by his first name, Siha, which means lion. Then the Buddha starts teaching. The Buddha says, yes, Siha, and immediately he teaches, he gives 5 points. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. He said, the Buddha says, 1, the giver, Siha, a master giver, is dear and agreeable to the multitude. Okay, these 2 words are very famous. Piya, because it's dear is Piya, love, beloved. And then Manapa, agreeable. So the giver is loved. And then the Buddha said the fact that this is the first visible fruit. People like someone who gives. Number 2, furthermore, Siha, truly good, peaceful individuals associate with the giver, the master giver. Right, so here we're talking about the kind of company, the kind of friends that this giver will make. If he's giving, if he's a kind, good giver, he also gets good, kind friends. Number 3, furthermore, Siha, a good reputation of the giver, a master giver, spreads around. And this is the 3rd visible fruit or immediate benefit of giving. The giver becomes famous. Of course, there are those who give anonymously, who don't want to be known. But basically, in the Buddha's time, that's difficult to do because it's a small society, it's much smaller. And if you do give, people will know. Benefit number 4. Furthermore, Siha, whatever assembly that the giver, the master giver approaches, whether it is an assembly of Kshatriyas, these are the nobles, or an assembly of Brahmins, the priests, today we probably call them the educators, or an assembly of house lords, these are people with landed property, and or an assembly of recluses. He approaches them with confidence, without nervousness. So in other words, the giver, because he has given, the idea is when you give, you have this good feeling inside you, this nice, warm feeling. There is a feeling of merit, a feeling of goodness. And that gives you spiritual confidence. And when you face people, you feel good. And that's what's meant here, confidence and without nervousness. Now the Pali word is a very important, very interesting. Look at note 32. And if we look through the whole sentence, you can see towards the end, the Pali word is Visarada. Visarada. Okay? That's the key word. If I'm working on the sutta on this topic, the abstract noun is Vesaraja. Vesaraja. The adjective is Visarado. Vesaraja can be translated as self-confidence, moral courage, or most translators translate as intrepidity. Intrepidity, which explains as resolute courage. Resolute courage, in other words, strong bravery. So there's a range of meanings here, Visaraja. The opposite of Visarada is an adjective, someone who is courageous, brave because of goodness, is Saraja. Saraja ranges from shy to afraid. So it includes words like timid, fearful, and so on. Of course, in Malay we say takut. It also includes, in Malay, segan, we say segan. It's very interesting. It's very difficult to translate segan into English, but it is a cultural thing. I don't think the English have the concept of segan. Basically, it means something being abashed. You feel that you should not take something that doesn't belong to you, that you didn't work for, and if you take from someone, you have to give back, something like that. You know, that idea, the Asian idea of reciprocity. In other words, you don't just take things. But of course, this kind of attitude is dying out today. The world is becoming more globalized. So very soon you just see this word in the dictionary, you don't know exactly what it means. So anyway, Sarada ranges, it includes all these senses, you know, of sagan, a kind of shyness because of the goodness of others, also fearfulness, and the Thais also have their own word, you know, Krai Chai, I think, in Thai, kind of very similar to Malay sagan. So here is just the opposite. The giver is Visarada, confident, kind of courageous also. And of course, you talk of this on a higher level, we can speak of this person having moral courage. Moral courage means the person is willing and able to stand up when something is wrong, especially to stand up for the Dharma. Of course, here we're talking about the giver, okay, so it's kind of a simpler level, a more worldly level if you like. And it's not nervous, okay? Number 5 is the last benefit. Furthermore, see here, when the body of the giver, a master giver, breaks up after death, he is reborn in a happy place, a heaven world. Okay, so this is this is not actually a visible benefit. You don't see this, but this is, you can take visible as meaning here and now, in the sense of this worldly. So you get this benefit also. Good karma. So rebirth brings good karma in this sense. So here you have these 5 teachings based on the old idea of goodness, the old idea of punya, merit. Okay? So this is the teaching for the old society, if you like. This is the teaching for the lay people, right? For the commoner. In a sense, because the Buddha gives this kind of teaching, that Buddhism has succeeded for so long. Buddhism has this very strong base. It has a pyramid, if you like, a very broad base of support by the lay people. What's the best way lay people can give? They have no time, they're very busy, but they have a lot of money. So they support the temples and the monasteries and the monks and teachers and practitioners by their generosity. So that's the big base at the bottom of the pyramid, and then you have the practitioners, and then the monks and nuns, and then the saints. So that's how Buddhism as a whole manages to survive to this day. The new approach that the Buddha's own teaching, if you like, is based on the concept of kusala, wholesomeness. Wholesomeness, in other words, is something that you do not for merit, because merit keeps you in this world, keeps you in samsara. You're reborn in heaven, yes, but heaven is still part of samsara. If you're in heaven, you will have to come back to the opposite of heaven. It can be a human world, it can be also suffering states. So you go round and round. In fact, the snake and ladder is a game just invented in India. You got the Jain version, you got the Buddhist version of snake and ladders to show this heaven, earth, hell kind of cycle. So maybe you do good deeds, then you climb up this ladder, zap, you go up in many numbers, even to the top, and then you got a bad throw, you move, you come to the snake's head, and zap, you go down back to square one even. So it goes back and forth like that. And that is samsara. You might even call snake and ladder samsara. So kusala, on the other hand, means that the saint, if you are a stream winner at least, and you do good, you may be a giver also, just like in this sutta, and you're reborn in the heavens, in the same heaven as someone who's not a stream winner, right? But then you're different because you can stay there more safely. And again in the sutta it is said the stream winner will never fall below the human level. The stream winner will never be reborn in the subhuman states. The animal world, the pretas, the asuras, the hell beings, right? So human world. Even then, the preta will be reborn in a happy state where he can practice, so that within 7 lives he would attain full awakening. So kusala, in other words, is a better deal. It is something that really keeps you happy and brings you to awakening. The question now is, how do we do this? The difference is how you give. So, let's say 2A and B may give the same thing. A is the punya, merit-minded person. So he gives, and then at the end of it he says, oh, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be rich, may I be reborn in heaven. That's all that he thinks about. Whereas the other person who has studied the suttas, who understands kusala, he will say, by this giving, may my mind be calm and clear. May this giving adorn my mind, and that I will be empowered with the wisdom and courage to attain stream winning. In other words, he uses this occasion of goodness to get the strength to reach the Eightfold Path. And once you step on the Eightfold Path, you are safe. That's the straight way to Nirvana, just a matter of time. You will not get distracted to the other dangerous pathways, in other words. So that's kusala. So it's the same action but different attitudes. It's how you look at the giving and what you think about when you give, so to speak. Right, so now see her replies. See her testimony, section 3. He's very happy. Okay? So when this was said, Janasiha said this to the Blessed One. Bhante, here I do not go by faith in the Blessed One regarding these 5, rather, not 4. These 5, just make a note of this title. 5. Oh, sorry, it says, no, don't change it, sorry. This 4 visible fruit is correct, then later he mentioned 1 more. He says, 4, regarding 4 of these, I did not go by faith. Now this is a very famous sentence by the lay disciples, even by Sariputta. We would not expect a disciple to talk in this way of the Buddha, but the funny thing, in the early Buddhism you find this very famous statement, I do not go by faith in the Buddha. But of course the sentence is not finished, okay? But Mahavira thinks that Sariputta does not have faith in the Buddha. He's not a Buddhist. He's given up on the Buddha. So he's very happy, he announces it to his congregation, and he says, oh look, Sariputta has denounced the Buddha. Then the Sariputta is like saying, hey, I'm not finished speaking. What I mean is, I don't go by faith, but this I've experienced for myself. So it is through wisdom that I understand this And that left the poor Mahavira kind of mouth open, and he was embarrassed that he missed the second more important part. So here we have a similar situation where, look, this is the Sikha telling the Buddha, I did not go by faith in the Buddha. That is regarding the first four qualities of when you give, you are beloved, you are popular. Number two, when you are a master giver, you are a giver, you have friends who are really good, very peaceful. And number three, you have a good reputation. And number four, you are confident before people. You are confident in society. The clincher here is 3.2. Siha says, Bhante, here I do not go by faith in the Blessed One regarding these four visible fruits of giving, for I do know them so well. I know these four things. But, number 5, but when the Blessed One said this, when the body of the giver, a master giver, breaks up after death, he is reborn in the happy place, in the heaven world, says this I do not know. Right? So she is saying the first four I know, it's quite obvious, but the fifth one I have not experienced it, so I do not know. So this one, see her admits, this I do not know, but here I go by faith in the Blessed One. So basically here is saying, okay, this last, the fifth one, I trust you, I trust that you say it's true, and I feel you should be right. Okay, so on this I go by faith. Then the Buddha replies, that is so, Siha, that is so, Siha. When the body of the giver, a master giver, breaks up after death, he is reborn in a happy place, in a heavenly world. Right? So you see this very interesting conversation. And then the main sutta ends there, and then we have the closing verses. Now there are some issues about these verses. Scholars are not sure whether the verses are the older part or the later part. But whatever, you see, early and late in the suttas simply tell us when they are composed, when they are put together. But even if the verses or a phrase or a passage or even a sutta is late, what we mean is it is late in the sense of during the Buddha's lifetime or within a few after centuries of the Buddha's life, still early Buddhism in other words. So even though we say sutta is late, from our time now, perspective of our time, the sutta is still very valid, very early. You know? I mean, after all, we do value some good writing, some good books today on Buddhism. If you value good books, and our books of today are definitely very late, thousands of years ago in the Buddha. So if we say a sutta is late or a teaching is late, even commentary, they are still valuable, they are still helpful to us as long as they help us to understand the suttas. So whether these verses are early or late, they are very useful. Very often they explain the teaching in prose, and they versify, they make it beautiful, easy to remember in verse. And sometimes they give us extra information also, which is not found in the sutta. And this gives us the impression that the verses actually could be a separate teaching. It's almost like the Buddha gives this verse and then explains the verses. Now you have to imagine how the Buddha teaches, right? You find that when I teach the suttas, I often give commentaries as I read the passages. So you got to imagine the Buddha also doing that. I mean, it's not like a mechanical robot giving a lecture. You know? He's going to present the Dharma in a way which the audience, the listener will understand, and the Buddha will be smiling, be very happy. I mean, it's like you're listening to your favorite pop star or Korean movie star, or think of someone you really like, someone you really worship, you've never met, and this guy suddenly appears in front of you and you say, okay, I'm going to teach you Dharma. And you're all eyes, all ears, you're listening to this person, you're enthralled. You notice some people, they have that kind of charisma, we say. They speak so kindly, their voice is so resonant, and their personality is so radiant, and they have this profound goodness. You just love listening to them. Whatever they say, whatever usually they will say something good. The Buddha is that kind of person. So the closing goes like this. The giver is beloved, many associate with him. He gains a reputation and his fame grows. He enters an assembly without nervousness. A generous man is one with confidence. Okay, notice the word confidence in the Pali is visarado. Okay, someone who is confident. Therefore, the wise give gifts, seeking happiness. He will remove the selfish state. Long ago, they settled in the heaven of threes, rejoicing in communion with the devas there. From this chance of doing good, from here he goes, self-radiant, to wander in Nandana. Okay, this is an allusion to the heaven of the 33. There's a famous story in Dhammapada about a young man called Magga. This young man, it is said, one day decided that he would do something, or today we call social work. He says, I'm going to level the roads so people travel very easy. We're talking about 2,500 years ago, a long time ago, more than 2,500 years ago. This is a story told at Buddha's time. So I'm going to level the roads so people can travel. I mean, today the roads are all very comfortable, very straight. But Buddha's time, you don't have roadworks in the way we have today. And he dug wells and plant trees. Now, these three are great social work in the Buddha's time, and Asoka was well known for doing this. Because if you really travel in those days, you travel on the road. Even if you take a vehicle, you may be riding a cart with a horse or something. So you go through the heat and the cold season. If the road is bumpy or rocky, it's very uncomfortable traveling. So imagine you have this smooth road, very comfortable ride, and then you have thirst, okay? Then you need wells. The water must be clean. And then you have trees to shade yourself. And sometimes the trees have fruits and it helps too. Alright? Okay, so we're on page 27 with the verse here. Right, so here this young man builds all these things. And then there was this very powerful guy who noticed that this young man is becoming very popular because he's doing all this great stuff, public works. So he told this young man, hey, you should stop doing this, I mean, he's losing his popularity, So he wanted to pay off this young guy. The young guy said, no, I'm happy doing this because by doing all this good stuff, when I die, I will be reborn in heaven. So he refused to budge, even when this powerful guy began to threaten him. Then later, this Magga, there were some other people, a group of 32 people, 32 or 33, joined him. They're all young men, so they all got together, and then so he has a big group of social workers who are like doing all this wonderful stuff. So they did this their whole life. So here you have an example of social work in the Dhammapada story. And then when they died, they became the gods of the 33. Tawatingsa means 33, the heaven of the 33. So here, the poem refers to this heaven in short form. The word here is Tideva. Can you see section 5, verse 5, line C, third line, Tideva. It's a play on words here. Actually, if you say Tideva, it translates literally as the heavenly three. That doesn't make sense. So you have to translate as the heaven of the threes. Three, all right? And in this heaven, there's a beautiful garden called Nandana. And the gods will just enjoy their day there. The day there is very long, half a day there is like one human lifetime. Can you imagine the kind of time they have there? So, what the Buddha is saying here, well, you do all these good deeds, you enjoy, you take a stroll in Nandana, enjoying yourself in Botanic Gardens during the weekends. That's our Nandana, okay? Something interesting to share here about time. Very often, if you're a writer, you publish books, you often have deadlines, and you have to rush this writing. And sometimes the worst thing that a writer can get is writer's block. You've got no ideas, things just get stuck. And you just don't feel like writing. That's the worst thing that can happen. So you can imagine. But translation work, sometimes like that. You can feel tired. Physically tired. This is one of the problems. A weak body cannot support a healthy mind. So you have to rest enough. But when you talk of time, there's something very interesting. If you live a morally virtuous life, a Dharma-spirited life, you find there's always time for goodness. It's when you start doing bad stuff, you find there's no time for anything else. This badness consumes your life, literally. I'm speaking for myself because I find there's always time to translate the suttas. And I'm amazed at the fact that somehow the suttas keep on coming out as if by themselves. Every 3 months, one volume. Sometimes I'm concerned, I said, will I be able to continue doing this? The other thing I fear is writer's block, burnout, But yet, whenever I sit there reading the suttas, translating, there's always this beautiful feeling, wow, this is great. Once you have this feeling, this is great, it keeps you going. And the fun part is, it's not always like I spend 2-3 hours doing this work. Sometimes it's just a few minutes here, a few minutes there. And you have to go for lunch, you have to go for dinner, you have to come for sutta class, So I have to start halfway, and I have a little piece of paper there. I will say, okay, SD, what volume, what number, and then the passage number. So that reminds me where I stop. And sometimes I have to work with 2-3 passages at the same time. So this note is very important. So I told myself, okay, I stop here, and then when I come back, continue. So in fact, in other words, it's like an ant working. Every time you come, you put a little bit of one piece of sand there, another particle of sand, and you go on building, and then within a week you find, wow, you're done. After 5 days, one sutta is finished, one short sutta. So, and this doesn't happen with other kind of work. So what I'm saying here is that the Dharma has this power of filling us with joy. And once you have this joy, you find there's always time to do this kind of work. So this heaven is like that. It gives you the sense of time and space. You always have time and space in a heavenly life. Whereas if you are suffering, there's little time, you feel very closed up and so on. Now the last verse 6. There they delight, enjoy, rejoice themselves, replete with the 5 chords of sense pleasures. Having done such an unattached one's word, the disciples of the well-God rejoice in heaven. So here the Buddha indirectly referred to someone who's unattached, and here the Buddha says his disciples are reborn in a heavenly state. Here he's talking to a lay person. There's no mention of becoming even Srimana here. But this is the basis of a happy life, so that we can, the next step of course is to practice, so that we can reach the path. So this is a provisional teaching, in other words, talking about living a happy life first. So the sutta ends there. Any questions?
So, unattached person here means the Buddha?
Now, if you look at the Pali on the left-hand side, line C, which word do you think it is? Yeah, asita. Asita means unattached. No? Sita means attached. So asita here refers to the Buddha, to an Arhat generally, but here specifically refers to the Buddha. Because here says, an unattached one's word. You can even translate as the unattached one's word. So it's indirect reference, okay? And then you have the next line is the well gone. Here definitely is the Buddha Sugata. Right? So there's a difference between a worldling going to heaven and a saint going to heaven. In other words, streaming upwards. Arahat doesn't need to go to heaven. But the three learners, Srimana, Vanchitana, Non-Returner, especially the first two, they can be reborn in the heavens. In the case of the non-returner, he has a special heaven called the pure abodes. Science fiction helps us to imagine the realms of all these beings. If they're reborn. For example, when we talk about the pure abodes, only non-returners are born there. So we're not talking about a place here. We're talking more of these non-returners because of their state of mind. When they die, they are reborn in that kind of state. So because of that kind of state, they can connect with each other. It's like having the same wavelength. So they can communicate mentally and also bodily, if you like. So the saint, in other words, really enjoy the heavenly state. It doesn't fall below into the subhuman state. Okay, any feedback, questions?
The giving, is this specifically means material giving only?
It's not mentioned here. Here, of course, it should be understood here, giving to the monks should be allowable giving, right? And giving to others should be right giving. I don't know, there's no technical concept, right giving. Rather, we can say wholesome giving, right? You don't give a weapon to someone to kill, all right? So here, giving in keeping with the 5 precepts, in keeping with right livelihood. Okay?
I just want to ask page 23 there.
Yeah.
The Arhat will show compassion to the giver first, and then basically first, and accept arms from him first, and teach him first. My question is that the Arhats, they are not partial in going to people for alms, right? So why is it mentioned here?
But it is yeah, of course, that's very true. Take the case of Mahakassapa. Mahakassapa is very interesting. He avoids the gods. He avoids the rich, he avoids the powerful, he goes to the very poor corner of town, of the city, to really the poorest area, and eats the simplest food. Alright? Once a leper gave him some food. So he purposely goes there because he wants these poor suffering folks, these unfortunate outcasts and so on, to be able to create merits for themselves, and by that action they will be free from their suffering states, from their unwholesome state. To the extent that this Chakra was so impressed that he felt he wanted to give to Mahakashyapa, but he knew that Piya has Sakra as the god. This Mahakashyapa would not open the bowl and would not, welcome the giving. So they disguised themselves as poor couple, as a poor couple, poor outcast couple, and then Mahakashyapa accepted the giving. After they couldn't contain their joy, they jumped to the air and said, "Oh, Sukho, oh, what joy!" And then Mahakashyapa looked up and said, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. That's dishonest." That was a bit of Buddhist humor there. So you have an example that an arahat who doesn't go to the rich and powerful. But generally, the arahats would of course go where the food is. That's natural. So what is being said here means these are the source of food. It's obviously that's the best place to go. It's not a bias that they would choose, but rather somehow these givers will be there. See, because those who don't give will not be there anyway. That's the first idea. And then they are the ones who ask for teaching, because they not only are generous, they also want to learn. So, and of course, they are hard to teach them because they are ready listeners. Others, they not only don't give, they also are not interested in learning or not able to learn. See? And then, so they visit them first, they show compassion, meaning like think of them, basically. For example, you have Sariputta who after going around all over central India, he comes back to town and he asks how is this person, someone he knew, and then someone said, "Oh, he's not very well now. His old wife died, he married a new wife, and the new wife is not a Buddhist and he's having difficulty with her." So Sariputta goes and see him and kind of teaches him Dharma. So here you have not the case where a layman goes to see the arahats. The arahats themselves do go to see the followers, the practitioners. So in the Buddha's time, the arahats, they were very active, very compassionate sawakas, disciples. It's only in the later times, the Mahayana, they gave the arahats a bad name. They began to, what do you call that, what's the word? They give a name, to this stereotype, these arahats, because they want to promote the idea of the bodhisattva. So they introduce this new ideology of the bodhisattva like a social worker, and the arahat are very selfish. They are depicted old and wrinkled in odd behaviors, in China, not in India. One is digging his ear, another one sitting one leg up, one leg down in a coffee shop, And bodhisattvas are always presented like movie stars, well-dressed, overdressed actually, and young, good-looking every time. That's a typical bodhisattva. The typical arahat, old, wizened, and so on. This is later Mahayana polemics or bias, as we say. So in only later teachings, the arahats are presented as not compassionate, so to speak. But if you look at the lives of the great arahats, compassion is their binding. You have wisdom and compassion in good balance. You cannot have one without the other. Sariputta's life is a good example. He's not just foremost of those who have wisdom, he's also foremost of those who have humility. He's a very greatly humble teacher. Instead of walking in front of the big congregation of monks who are walking, he's the last, because he wants to make sure that the monastery they leave behind is clean, everything is orderly, all the water tubs are turned upside down, rubbish are thrown away, and when the novices are sick, he would take care of them, and so on. So the arahats were very compassionate people in the Buddha's time, in the suttas. So this is one thing I was very clear about. Okay? I think I should write about this in one of our FB posting, so that to clear the name of the arahats, just remind me. So there you are. Okay, any other comments, questions? got about 7 more minutes. The summary of the teaching is given on page 22, 1.4. Everything is there, 5 points.
General question.
Okay, sure.
We are all familiar with things done by individuals, people like you, me, and people in the society. But there are also things done by governments, state governments, states. So sometimes states like Singapore, we have done a lot of good things under Lee Kuan Yew and so on. But there are also bad things that have been done. And of course in other countries, sometimes it's much worse. The states are, they just want to enrich themselves. They don't care too much about citizens.
Yeah.
So when we think about actions by states, can we speak of karma? Karma in the state and not so much the people.
Yeah, this is the problem of, is there group karma? I have written something about this. Okay, the simple answer is there is technically no group karma, because karma is intention, and intention is always individual. That's the first principle. Number 2, although there is no group karma, a single person's action can result in a massive concerted effort.
As a group?
Yeah, so that can happen too. But technically we don't call that karma. Okay, you can call it action, but the problem is in ancient Buddhist philosophy there's no word for, there's no separate word karma as action, karma as karma, Anyway, the point is this: the minds of all those people doing something bad together. Let's say, okay, there is this gang leader who's very bad, he wants to rob a bank or murder somebody, and he's got 5 bad guys under him, his lieutenants. They're really also fired up by him, and they also have the intention, see? So they all have the same bad karma. So we would say a coincidence of karma, rather than they all have the same karma. There's no such thing as all of them have only one karma, but all of them have the similar state of mind, if you like. But how do you measure a person's mind? And a person's mind is so volatile, so different every moment. So, but you have these 5 minds where their intention is similar. They're going to rob a bank, for example. Right? So in that sense, there is good karma. So it is a provisional answer. We cannot say there is such a thing as good karma. No. It's kind of a very relative thing, Karma is always individual. So this brings up the third point. For example, after war is over, who do we punish? You don't punish the whole country, although they tried to do that with Germany, But you try to punish those top guys. Of course, they couldn't get Hitler killed himself. So they start punishing his lieutenants and so on. So there are always those people. There is an hierarchy of commands and planning. Who is the mastermind? So you have the intensity of karma on that level. For example, there was this case, then this student of mine, he became a full-time army guy. And he has to go into the forest and catch a live, either a frog, a snake, or some animal, and then kill it, skin it like that, and eat it, So he really felt bad about it because he's practicing Buddhist, So he says, don't I create bad karma? I said, yeah, of course killing is bad karma, but then you have taken this line, so you have to obey the commander up there, you see. So the brunt of the karma is more with the commander, you see. Whereas in the case of the person who does it, it only occurs when he actually kills. It's just like we say fisherman, butcher, but the reality is there's no such person. No one is a fisherman 24 hours a day. No one is a fisherman. No one is a butcher 24 hours a day. So in terms of Buddhist psychology, he only creates bad karma when he kills the fish, okay, or when he has intention of killing. But then he also, supports his family and so on. So there's a mixture of karma, good and bad. And this is what causes suffering. There is pleasure, but pleasure simply means the absence of suffering. And suffering is the absence of pleasure. It goes back and forth like that. This is the ding-dong battle that most of the lay people faces. So karma is very complicated in that sense. So back to all these bad politicians, there's usually one, the key figure, and he will suffer the most in the sense of karma. Then others who willingly, happily, totally support him also will suffer. It goes like that. But we wouldn't say the whole country will suffer, because in the army, for example, many of them, they have to battle, they have to fight, unless they are conscious objectors, but then they have their own difficulties to face. So karma works in that sense.
I think
Let us close then. Like today we have reflected on the Sika Sutta, on the Panchaka Dhanapalasiya Sutta, which reminds us of the importance of giving, of the benefits of being wealthy, meaning we have the ability to give, to be kind, to prevent problems. In other words, we also need wisdom so that we can put our resources into some kind of beneficial response to the suffering of others. And if we have skills, we can also use those skills to change our environment and in due course the world. So Buddhism is not merely about self-development. It also shows us that when we develop ourselves, others also are influenced and they too would want to follow our example, as the Buddha has shown. Reflecting in this way is very good karma. By the power of such karma, let us cultivate loving kindness for our own well-being, our own happiness, good health, so that we can practice the Dharma ourselves. We will be strong, morally courageous ourselves to do good and benefit our generation. And also by the same token, by goodness of the three jewels, let us send out our loving kindness to all the people here. May they be well and happy. And to our families and relatives, our loved ones, that they may prosper and live happily in this life too. And also to those who are practicing the Dharma, may they realize the true teaching in this life itself. And to those who are facing difficulties, especially in terms of the Dharma, may they see the true teaching in this life itself. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.